Hello, all. This is Dr. Dave Maslach talking to you about reciprocity.com. The E is written with a 3. And in this particular video, I want to talk about acceptance rates for PhDs and business and DBA programs around the world. So if you don't know, I'm actually a professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship. And this is something that we do look at, right? So there's lots of programs that want to bring in PhD students. However, we sort of generally have pretty low acceptance rates for people that are applying to any program. So generally at any program around the world, they're going to be between probably around 1 to 10%. So probably more like 5%. So for every 20 applications that are sent to a particular program, only one is accepted. And there is, and generally the more sort of higher ranked this institution, right, the more rigorous that is, or the more severe that particular standard is, right? But generally, even at the sort of lowest ranked institutions, it's probably going to be like 1 in 10, right? So 10%, if not more, in terms of the PhDs or the acceptance rates for the PhDs. So why is that? There is a lot of different reasons why that is the case. And first of all, I want to point out that this ignores the sort of challenges of people that actually get to the point of when they're actually applying to a PhD program in business or doing a DBA program, right? So those people are pretty good anyways, right? So they have done rigorous undergrad programs. They've done difficult MBA programs, for example. They're pretty outstanding individuals. So the program is pretty rigorous in terms of people that are actually sending their applications in, and the competition is pretty rigorous, right? So why are these acceptance rates so low? So for the most part, it's really just thinking about the particular candidates. It's thinking about whether they're actually going to do well in the program and thinking about whether they are going to get an academic position once they are done, right? So that's normally what you do with a DBA program or within a PhD in business program. DBA is slightly different. A lot of the people that do DBA, except for Harvard, maybe a couple of other places, they might go into different locations or different academic positions, but generally they are going to go into less of an academic position or maybe a teaching position, something like that. But a PhD program, pretty consistently, they are aiming for placing you in some sort of academic position. And the academic job market is pretty tough. It's pretty difficult, right? And in order to actually get an academic position and become a professor in a business school or something along those lines, maybe working in a research institute, for example, then they generally need to meet some requirements, right? So generally what people are looking for, it's not necessarily the number of people that are being sent or go, as a hard cutoff. Generally, there is financial constraints for a number of PhD students that schools can bring in, but generally they're looking for, are these people going to do extremely well and make that particular institution look well in the academic job market, right? And is that going to make that particular institution excel and build a reputation for that particular institution? That's what all of the professors are looking for. In fact, a lot of professors are going to be thinking about, if we bring in that particular person, are they going to make my research program look very well and do extremely well? Based on who they are, right? So they're really thinking about that. And that's the key thing, is it's not necessarily that these acceptance rates are low. It's the sort of fact that we like to look out for, whether this would actually be sort of suiting for you as a person and whether you're actually going to do well in this particular career, because it is really tough. It truly is tough. It's challenging, and everybody is going to say that. If you talk to any business professor, they're all going to say that it is challenging. Anybody that does a PhD, they're all going to say that it's challenging and it's pretty rigorous to do that. And you just don't want to bring in people that they're just not at that particular level yet to do well and excel in this particular career. So do PhDs in business, does the acceptance rates change from year to year? Yes, it does change from year to year. And there's lots of different factors for that, right? So it makes sense to apply several years in a row, just like if you're going into med school or if you're going into vet school or something along those lines, you should probably apply multiple years in a row because it does change, right? So when the external job market does well, right, if the economy is hot, for example, then a lot of people might not want to choose to do a PhD. But when the economy is doing poor, they might go back to school and get retooled and retrained. So, it does fluctuate that way. It might just fluctuate just by random sort of chance events that happen, right? We're talking about very small samples. And whenever there's very small samples, usually it's very sensitive to sort of strange things that happen in the market, right? So it might be just 1 year is a poor year for whatever reason. It's just not marketed very well or something like that. So it does change from year to year, and it changes between programs to programs. So you should look into that and, not just sort of say, I'm going to apply this one particular year. You should probably look at it a multi-year process in terms of applying and trying to get into the particular institution that you're trying to get into, right? So who is most likely to actually get accepted or get through these very low acceptance rates? So generally, there's lots of different criteria that people are going to look at, that the professors that are evaluating those particular applications are going to look at. They're going to look at like GMAT scores. That's one of them. And that's just kind of like a rough estimate of what they're going to be. So you probably should have fairly high GMAT scores. Probably more important is letters of reference and, especially from people that we might know as particular people, or as we just don't want to bring in kind of like this person that comes from nowhere and they're not necessarily, we're just uncertain about what they are about, right? That's an important thing. Personal statements are going to be very, very important as well as the institutions where they came from, right? So if they come from, if candidates come from very good institutions and they have good GPAs, for example, things like that are going to count. And that's really, generally with an application at a lot of schools, they're going to be very holistic and they're going to look at all sorts of different factors. So if somebody does poorly on one thing, they're going to, and they're amazing on all others, they might sort of say, well, let's take a look at this particular applicant a little bit more deeply. Now, if you are at the best possible school, and you're thinking of getting in the best possible school and you have like one blemish, it might impact your particular application, right? Because they just have a lot more choice, right? Because there's more people sort of competing for those particular positions. But in general, what we're looking for is whether you actually understand that the career is all about research and that it's an important thing for what you are trying to do, right? We're not looking if you're mentioning anything like teaching or, executive education or stuff like that. Your application is not going to be taken as strongly if somebody says that you want to go into this career to do research and to do very rigorous research and to convert actually have a research plan of what you want to do and investigate different things. And especially if somebody took the time to read the literature in a particular area, if you actually read the literature in the area, you spent like a month reading the literature and you cite different things and you know which journals are actually good, that's going to speak very highly for you as an applicant, and that's going to really help you out. So that would be sort of my tip for you, is just go through, pick out you can look at a couple of our articles, right, of any professor around the world, wherever you're going to apply, and just read some of their articles and go through them and cite them and say that these are really cool things, and build your application around that particular article, right, or those multiple articles, and say that you've actually read it. That's very flattering. That's going to help you out a lot going forward, right? That's a really important tip for you to actually do well on any acceptance into a PhD in business program, or a DBA program or something like that. So that's all I want to talk about in this video. Hopefully you found it useful. So acceptance rates are generally really low. And that's just consistent across anything that we do in the sort of business academic world. Our journal articles, often they're like 1 to 5% in terms of acceptance rates, even lower for any of those. That's like kind of normal. Just getting into getting a tenure track job, for example, that's pretty low in terms of being able to do that. A lot of programs try to make sure that you are sort of set for that by selecting on those particular individuals, but that it is in general that the odds of you actually getting through and doing well is pretty low already. So we want to make sure that you're actually you're an outstanding person, that you're going to be able to excel in this particular career. So that's the important thing to think about. So hopefully you like this video. That's all I'm going to say. Take care. Oh, give me a thumbs up if you like it, and do subscribe to the YouTube channel. All right, take care. Have a wonderful day. Bye.